In this video series, we're going to go into a little more depth about the string type. Yes, we've seen examples of strings in a lot of the previous videos, but as we've alluded, the string type is a little more complex than the other types, and there's some subtle issues involved. Let's remind ourselves how strings work in Python. If I want to type in a string literal, I first type a quotation mark, and then after that, I give it the characters that I want to be part of the string. Characters can include letters, they can include numbers, they can include punctuation marks, they can even include emoji. I'm going to add a smiley face here to my string. When I'm done, I type a final quotation mark. I'm going to hit return, and Python liked this. This is an example of a string. The string is the set of characters in between those two quotation marks. But remember, this is important, those quotation marks are not part of the string. Suppose I take this string, and I'm going to assign it to a variable, say A. And I'm going to ask, what is the length of this string? And it tells me that the length of the string is 4. There are 4 characters, H, 2, exclamation mark, and the smiley face. Quotation marks are not part of the string. However, I said that characters can include any sort of punctuation mark, and quotations are examples of punctuation. So could quotation marks be inside of a string? Well, yeah, and I might have a reason to do that. I might be typing dialogue like I said, stop. To make this a string, I need to remember to put quotation marks at the end and beginning. I'm going to hit return, and Python likes this. So let's try to understand this string a little better. I'm going to assign this string to a variable. I'm going to assign it to be B. And now I'm going to ask, what is the length of this string? And you'll see that it tells me that it's 13. Now remember, characters include everything between those two outside quotation marks. So the spaces count. And if you count the spaces in the letters, that still only gives you 11. So those double quotation marks around the stop, they are included. They are indeed part of the string. Why did that work? Well, let's look at this string. You'll notice that it starts with a single quotation mark. Python is going to go along, and then it sees this double quotation mark. Now, normally, when Python sees a quotation, it might be worried this is the end of the string. But it remembers, wait, this string started with a single quotation mark. This double quotation, it can't be the end of the string. It must be a character inside of the string. So it's going to keep reading until it gets to the end here, and it sees this single quotation mark. This highlights that in this case, it was really important that I used single quotations. Suppose I took the same string and instead I tried to begin and end it with double quotation marks. Well, now I have an error. And why do I have an error? Well, once again, let's think about how Python reads this. We have these double quotation marks right here. It's going to continue reading all of these characters, and then it sees this double quotation mark right before stop. We started with a double quotation mark, so this must be the end of the string. And now I have this stop and everything else, and Python is just confused and it says that there's an error. Okay, so that means, as a rule of thumb, if you have a string and you want to put double quotations in it, then you need to create that string with single quotations. All right, but what if you want to create a string that has a single quotation in it? Suppose you're creating the string, which is a contraction, don't. Let's put this between single quotations. And as you can see, we have a problem. And it's the same problem that we had before. We're starting with a single quotation mark. Python reads along, and then it reaches this single quotation mark right before the T. Python looks at that and says, that must be the end of the string. And then this T and everything after that, well, that just confuses it. What I really needed to do in that case is put it inside of double quotation marks. In fact, I type it and Python says, yes, that's exactly what you should have done. Okay, great. So the rule of thumb is if you're typing a string that has double quotation marks in it, you have to start it and end it with single quotations. And if you put single quotations in it, you have to start it and end it with double quotations. What if both of them are in the string? So let's go back to this I said stop, and I'm now going to replace it with I said don't. Now let's think about it. Right now I have double quotation marks around it, and that's probably a good idea because I have a single quotation mark here. But I hit return, I have an error. And why is that? Well, I see this double quotation mark at the beginning. Python goes along and reads it, and then it sees this double quotation mark before the don't. That must be the end of the string. Everything after it confuses Python. Okay, fine. Let's try single quotation marks instead. And once again, Python doesn't like it. Why? Because we have these single quotation marks at the beginning of the string. Python goes along, and then it sees this single quotation mark right before the T. That must be the end of the string, and everything after this just confuses Python. What do we do here? Are we out of luck? Does Python not support having both of these in a string? Well, it does, but we have to do something special. We have to have some way of telling Python that we want a quote to actually be inside of the string instead of delimiting the string. When we say delimiting the string, we mean at the beginning or at the end. The way we do that is with an escape sequence. An escape sequence is where we type a backslash first. Let me show this off with just the word don't. So I'm going to type D-O-N. And now I want to tell Python, I want to have a single quote here. I want it to actually be part of the string. So to do that, I type a backslash. This backslash tells Python that the next thing that's going to come is actually part of the string. So I'm going to type a single quotation mark, then I'm going to type a T, and then I'm going to type a final quotation mark. I'm going to hit return, and Python entirely liked this. In fact, it told me, why didn't you just use double quotation marks, dummy? But as you can see, this allowed me to actually type the string starting and ending with single quotation marks and not get an error message. This output here with the double quotation marks actually highlights another interesting thing here. That backslash character, that's a very special character. It tells the string that the next thing is part of the string, but the backslash itself is not part of the string. In fact, you'll notice that it went away here when Python evaluated the don't. Let me make this explicit. Let's go back to this I said don't. And I'm going to make this okay by putting it inside of single quotation marks. And then the problematic single quotation mark, I'm going to put a backslash in front of it. And I'm going to assign this to a variable. This was perfectly fine. And you notice that when I show it, Python says, okay, well, you start and end with single quotation marks, and I've got this backslash here, so I realize that, okay, that thing after the backslash, that's actually a quotation mark inside of the string. But if I ask, what is the length of C, you'll see that it tells me 14. That includes the spaces, that includes the double quotation marks, and it includes that quotation mark single in between the N and the T. But it means that the backslash there is not actually part of the string. It's just like the quotes on the outside. Now, okay, so these are examples of what we call escape characters. And they're not the only examples. In general, escape characters have this example. I type a backslash, and then I type something after it. And the something after it, I want to be part of the string. What's another thing that I have to escape? Well, anything that is a special character that Python might ignore if it doesn't know any better. In particular, I actually have to do this if I want to type a backslash. Suppose I wanted to have a backslash C. I type this into Python, and you'll notice that what I get back is a backslash backslash C. What happened here was Python said, okay, I see the backslash. And the thing after that, that C, I have no idea what you're talking about. So, oh wait, you really must meant that that backslash was part of the string. Well, that's not how you type it. You have to, if you want to put a backslash in a string, type backslash backslash. But once again, I want to point out, let's assign this to a variable. Looking at D, it looks like there are two backslashes there. But if we ask, what is the length of D? The length of D is only 3. And that is because the backslash that is there is not real. It is not part of the string. As you can see, this is really confusing. And one of the reasons why it's confusing is there are things that are not there in the string, but when Python is trying to show it to us as a value, it does show it there. So we might think that it's actually there. The way to realize that it's not actually there is to take these strings and print them. Because when you print a string, it only prints what is in the string and none of these special things like the quotation marks on the outside or the special backslash characters. If I print D, you'll notice that it only prints it with a single backslash. If I print C, you'll notice that it prints I said don't without any of the backslashes involved. So print is a very nice way of realizing what is escape characters and what are actually real in this case. This is why another nice example of escape characters is to add features to a string that will only show up when I print them. So once again, I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to assign it the string hello \n world. And let's print out this string. You'll notice that when I printed out the string, it printed out the hello and the world on two different lines. What's going on here? That \n, that stands for new line. This is a way that we can create a string that spans multiple lines. I can also, and this is very similar, put tabs inside of a string. So I'm going to go replace this n with a t. Now when I print out this string, as you can see, it prints out hello, and then it does a tab space world. These four examples of escape characters for the two quotation marks, the backslash, the n, and the t are the primary uses of escape characters in this course. Yeah, there are other reasons why you might want to escape. They generally involve things like fancy Unicode. But for the most part, if you understand these escape characters, you'll be able to write any string that we ask you to write in this course.